Soham, how's it going?
Hey, hi. So nice to meet you. It's going good.
So,
How are you doing?
so nice to meet you too. Let me take this giant QR code off the screen. Let's see. Okay, just changed it. All right, let's see. Cool. Thank you so much for joining us. I think I have your slides up, so we'll get started in just a moment. Let's try it out.
Yep.
Oops. Oh, these are your slides.
Okay, yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Why don't you just let me know when you want me to go to the next one?
So I think I'm able to share. I think that's me sharing, right?
What's up on the screen is what I'm sharing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, never mind. Okay, sounds good then.
Here, but I can try. Let me try yours real quick. Thank you, everybody, for bearing with us through the technical difficulties. It would not be a true virtual conference without them. And thank you, Soham. All right, so let me try yours real quick. Let's see. All right, I think these are from your screen now.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
All right, take it away.
Okay, thank you so much. Really happy to be here. And yeah, it's not easy giving a talk after Mate and Chip speak. But I hope I can, um, say something that you still find useful. My talk, it's gonna be about the challenges that I faced when I was building this LLM product. And throughout these last about 6 months of building this, I've learned a lot of things about building the product and how we can actually solve some of the challenges that happen when deploying LLM products. So I'm hoping to tell you a bit about that, and hopefully give you a preface to some of the things that other people will be talking about in the conference later on. So a bit about me. I'm currently working as the lead ML engineer at a fintech startup in Singapore called Sleek. Apart from that, I'm also an instructor at LinkedIn as well as Udacity. So I've created a few courses. Over the last few months, I've been building this tool called Speaker Scribe that you can use to create talks. Talk proposals as well as like workshop proposals and stuff like that. And in the process, like I'm hoping to learn a lot about deploying LLMs and what are the standards, like good standards and best practices for deploying LLMs. And also I'm writing about what I'm learning throughout the process at tinyml.substack.com. I want to quickly cover like three things basically. One is like the challenges that we are facing with deploying LLM applications, the solutions that have worked for us so far, and also end by talking a bit about the kind of products that I think are useful, like the kind of useful products that you can build with LLMs. So I want to start out by talking about our biggest challenge, which is using LLM APIs. I think one of the biggest challenge is actually the lack of like SLAs or commitments on endpoint uptimes and latencies from API providers. So, for instance, when we were building our application, there were inconsistencies when we would get a result back from the API. This would cause and the problem with having like delays is a lot of the tools that people are building with LLMs are for creative applications, applications where if you don't give a response quickly, you can't you kind of disrupt like a flow state that the user may have, and having to wait even a few extra seconds can be painful, right? um, and on top of that, the deprecation of APIs actually kind of further add fuel to the fire, So when OpenAI so when we started building our application with the DaVinci 002 endpoint, it was working really well, and we were able to create a lot of prompts that worked, and we had like this really good application, but then they suddenly deprecated it, and when we tried moving to the new updated endpoint, it took like a lot of time to adjust our application to make sure it was working at the same level. And so yeah, so that's another issue that happens. And finally, there's the issue of API costs. Even with the reduction in cost that OpenAI announced yesterday, what happens is, as your application kind of increases in complexity and in scope, your prompts increase, and that causes an increase in your API costs, which will kind of tend to skyrocket really quickly. And you can't really rely on those API. You can really rely on these external APIs because of the costs. So what you have to do instead is move on to other tasks like fine tuning, or maybe even actually training your own custom model. And then the second challenge that we had to do with how we structure prompts and how we parse and serve the results of the output to our clients. Prompt engineering is not really an exact science, and there's a lot of issues with creating prompts because so for instance, issues we've had are like adding apostrophe commas, or like punctuations have usually like breaks a lot of prompts for us. And so it's really hard to make a prompt that works and then try to maintain it. um, Hallucinations are also an issue, and the problem with hallucinations, especially now, is that they're really hard to spot as well. And so what we need to do to prevent that is have evaluation metrics for the outputs, which there aren't really a lot of, and it's also hard to evaluate a lot of your outputs as well. And because it's hard to evaluate your outputs, you can't really trust the output that the model is giving, which and if you can't trust it, then it's very hard to serve it to a client because you don't know if it contains misinformation. um, Another issue is especially with all the updates that OpenAI and other LLM providers are making with their models, is at least something that we've seen, is that the outputs are not creative enough sometimes. And and when that happens, you don't want to serve like similar outputs to people asking you to asking you to create like similar proposals, right? So it's hard, so you have to engineer your prompts in such a way that the outputs are creative, play around with some of the parameters that OpenAI provides. And finally, you have to deal with bias as well as incorrect data. So what worked for us, and some of the things that we are doing is, with prompts, what we've seen works really well is providing context to the LLM when creating prompts. So using few shot prompting, that helps a lot. So this is a demo of Speaker Scribe. And so when you go and click the regenerate proposal, ideally you should also provide the context of the previous output, so that helps the LLM also be more creative and make better outputs. There are some more complex prompt engineering techniques, but what we've seen is anything after chain of thought kind of makes the prompts really huge as well as the outputs, and that increases your API costs as well. Um, and regarding prompts, prompts are now like your IP, right? If you have a good prompt, you should save it, and you should protect it because it's your IP. And you should also version your prompts to see what changes, how the changes are affecting the output, and maybe that might lead to something like prompt ops or something later on as well. um, One way to provide context to LLMs and to also reduce like costs is to use vector databases. By saving previous outputs, like caching your outputs, you can actually save on like improve latency, as well as by not having to call the API, you can save API costs as well. And then vector databases also help by finding context that you can provide to the LLM to help improve its output, as well as to reduce hallucinations. So, for instance, in our case for the Speaker Scribe product, what we did was we created a database of past talks and past workshops that people submitted, and we use and whenever someone asks us to create a new proposal, what we do is we use vector databases to get the context of the talks that we have in our database to improve performance. And finally, uh, so as we're starting to build more and more complex products with LLMs, I think if you look at like the comic here, so I think right now we're kind of in like stage 2 or stage 3 of the complexity of building products with LLMs. um, and the problem with using chains is that chains tend to fail, especially if the chains are like really long. So what I think what you need to do is what worked for us is keeping chains short. Also, by having chains long, it increases the costs as well as latency and complexity, which is not great. And finally, it helps to not use agents. Agents right now, they don't really work that well. They're not reliable and reproducible. So in our experience, like agents don't really work that well. So bringing all that back together, how do you build like a good and useful LLM product, right? And what you need to do, and what you need, and your LLM product, what it needs to do is make sure that you need to make sure that people don't use ChatGPT and use your product instead, right? So how you do that is, first of all, you make it easier to access, and that's something that, for instance, Grammarly has done. You can use Grammarly Go nowadays. It's similar to how we built this ChatGPT Chrome extension. So just reduce the effort it takes to go to ChatGPT, and then and just provide it easier. Um, Also, you can help make your application better than ChatGPT by including domain knowledge. So that's what we did with Speaker Scribe. And what we are doing at Sleek is we have like our own customer data, so we can use that as context as well to improve the output of our models, right? And finally, another thing that you should do is provide like some additional services on top of the LLM output that ChatGPT provides. So one interesting thing that I've seen is people using LLMs to create decks, right? For decks, you need like images, which ChatGPT doesn't do right now. Yeah. So I think that's pretty much it. Thank you so much. You can check us out at speakerscribe.com, and also follow our journey at tinyemail.substack.com. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much.